With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
Bourbon Life listeners, we have a very special announcement. Penelope Bourbon has officially re-released their massively popular Rio Straight Bourbon Whiskey. Named one of Breaking Bourbon's best finished whiskeys of 2023, Rio quickly sold out last year. With a double cask finish of American honey and Brazilian oak and a spicy cinnamon palate, there's nothing quite like it. Let Rio transport you to the land of Carnival. Visit PenelopeBourbon.com to order your bottle today. There's something different about Lexington, Kentucky. Something you can't quite put your finger on. The source of this magic? Limestone. It gives our native spirit an unmatched purity that will keep you coming back for more. But bourbon this good, from a place this beautiful, is too wonderful to keep hidden away. So come visit and see why Lexington is Bourbon Land. Brought to you by Visit Lex. Plan your Bourbon Land adventure at visitlex.com.
Limestone Farms bourbons are like a secret portal to a world of rich flavors where high proof meets smooth satisfaction. Every barrel is meticulously crafted and blended with a specific message in mind. Experience clean delineated flavor profiles that will have you engaged from the first sip to the final drop, making your palate beg for just one more taste. Limestone Farms, bringing heritage home.
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here tonight live in the Bourbon Life studios, it is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there in the, I don't know what I should call your room. You're not the control room. You're not the green room. So the fireplace room, whatever you want to call it.
I'm the empty space room.
The empty space.
Like this podcast, the empty space segment of the podcast.
Yeah. So how you doing out there, Matt?
Mark, I'm doing great out here. How are you? How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. I'm really looking forward to this show. We've had it scheduled for a while. And this is just, it's exciting. It was one of those, we'll get into it, man, but it was, a couple of months ago, we're all just like, what? Kind of blew everybody's mind. So this is going to be a lot of fun to jump into this and get the story behind our guest tonight and the distillery that we're going to be talking about and drinking some of the good bourbon coming out of there. But I do have to tell everybody, of course, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support, everything they do for us. We couldn't do this podcast without their help. And of course, without all the help of our other sponsors. We appreciate everything they do for us. Matt, with that said, would you like to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
I absolutely would. Of course, with the help of our sponsors, we are so happy to have joining us this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever it is you are getting your Bourbon Life Podcast, the founder and president of Staghorn, the owner of Garrard County Distilling Company, Ray Franklin. Ray, welcome on to the Bourbon Life Podcast.
Hey, good evening. How are y'all doing? Thanks for having me.
We're doing good, man. We're happy to have you on here. We appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us tonight. We got a couple of bottles here that we're going to be drinking through tonight, so we're really looking forward to that. The story of the brand, that's, kind of a round two thing, but man, it's kind of crazy. I mean, like I said, we've talked about it amongst ourselves. We got a group of bourbon fans and we do some shows together. And yeah, man, Garrard County Distilling just popped up and there it was all of a sudden, like, bam. But we're going to get into that in a little bit. First, I'm going to tell everybody what we're drinking tonight. You all graciously sent us several different things. Well, it's the All Nations single barrel bourbon. We've got 3 different bottles from 3 different barrels. So I think what we're going to do, because, each single barrel is going to be unique and different. So this one, I've poured up the first one. This is 109.3 proof. So a nice proof point. barrel number 3124, bottle 174 from that barrel. Man, beautiful labeling and bottle. We'll talk about that in a little bit as well, but absolutely love the design, the shape, the look, everything about this. So Ray, is there anything you want to add about the bourbon itself before we kind of jump into our conversation, what we're going to be drinking?
Just, I hope you enjoy it. I hope our first experience is a good one.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Matt, why don't you tell me what you pick up on the nose on this one?
The first little bits that I had of the nose, right when I got it poured into the glass, it was really thick, like really creamy, a lot of vanilla, a lot of toffee, kind of like that nougaty confectioner's sweetness, just like really thick, really, really stuck all the way through the nose. Now that it's had some time in the glass, I think the fruitier sides are coming through on this. A lot of cherry, a lot of dark red fruits coming through, like plum, like other sort of red wine fruits, like sweet grape on it as well. Just really nice, really beautiful nose that's really opened up to the fruitier side with still some of that kind of vanilla and that toffee undertone to it.
Matt, I'm actually getting a little bit of spice to it, almost like a hint of clove coming through on this as well, which is kind of strange, but mixing in with those fruitiness, the notes you talked about, and that's just something that's just started because I poured this up about 10 minutes ago, and it's just kind of been changing, like you said, in a glass. I agree with what you said initially. I mean, when you first poured it up, you get those rich, deep notes, but then it has kind of transitioned into that fruitiness as well. But then also I'm starting to pick up just some spices as well, but that kind of a little bit hint of clove to me comes through on this one. Ray, can we ask you, and I don't know if you can tell us, but obviously this isn't your distillate because you guys just started distilling. Can we talk about where this came from? Or are you allowed to tell us that?
Sure. It's Danville Distillate.
Okay. All right. Very, very good. We were speculating about that ahead of time, wondering about that. And Matt put up a good point because, I was talking about the label, and the label is beautiful, and the coloration of the label. A lot of times you see that with actually like a whiskey or a wheated bourbon. So I know that it doesn't have the mash bill on this, but is this a wheated bourbon? Are we drinking a wheated bourbon or?
That's a rye bourbon.
A rye bourbon. Okay. Well, surprise, Matt. Your theory was wrong, my man.
That's right. And not the first time. Won't be the last.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Very, very nice, though. Nice on the nose, for sure. So, Ray, let's kind of talk about you. Let's talk about, if you would, share with us, where you're from, your background, and then, of course, how you started your journey, how you got into the whiskey industry, because you got a really cool backstory. And that I think it's going to be a lot of fun to kind of get into. So can you kind of share that information with us and take as long as you'd like to do?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I, from Southeast Alabama, born and raised, moved up to Auburn, Alabama, following my then girlfriend, now wife.
Hey, all right.
Right. So she went to Auburn. I went to a good Christian school in Montgomery, Alabama. Faulkner University on a military education program, was in the National Guard for several years to pay for college. We then, in natural progression, moved on up to Atlanta. And I actually moved to Atlanta and started selling lawn care, trying to find my first job, right? And then as we were buying our first house, our real estate agent, who became a really good friend of ours, we're still good friends today. He calls me out of the blue after we purchased our house and says, "Hey, are you interested in getting in the liquor, beer, and wine industry? I think you'd be great for it." And of course, I nodded enthusiastically, yes, I would. And so I started my career, it's over, 2.5 decades ago at United Distributors in Atlanta.
Wow.
Carrying a bag selling wine to, Kroger and Publix. And I was like, hey, this is fun. But, I see the spirits guys are off at 2:00 and playing golf and making all the money. Maybe I should get on that side. And so then moved to another distributor in Atlanta, started selling spirits, And then, along the way, I met a lot of folks like Dave Pickerell, a lot of, distillers that are coming in and talking to you about brands. And as they would come in, I would chat with them, about how they got started, what they were doing. And then along the way, we're talking 15 to, so years in, my real estate buddy calls me again, says, hey, I have two friends that want to build a distillery in Georgia, kind of a retirement, pot still operation. Would you help them? I was like, yeah, sure. I don't know anything about distilling, but let's go. But they need to really help with the brand side, right? They didn't know laid-in costs, MOBs. They had no clue what they were doing. So met with them, and they said, hey, who do we get? They didn't know how to distill either. I said, well, at the time, Dave Pickerell was about the hottest thing going, right? Yeah. He was really rejuvenated the craft, business, craft distillery business, was building these cool one-off pot still operations. And Whistle Pig had just kind of taken off. And I was like, this is the guy, right? Let's go. They're like, oh, do you know him? I was like, no, I don't. So they're like, well, where do we start? So we took a distillation class in Chicago just to meet him. And, we said, hey, we need some help. We got this great idea like a lot of people have, right? And he kind of laid out three things. One, he goes, one, you can't be an asshole. I was like, okay, well, that's questionable, but we'll keep moving. What's number two? He said, well, you got to be willing to learn, right? And then you got to be willing to work hard. I was like, well, 2 out of 3 is not bad. Let's get started. So we went after the class and kind of hung out and told him a little more about our story. And the next week he calls, he goes, hey, I'm in Atlanta and, doing something for Whistle Pig. He's like, hey, we're in. I'm in. So he met us. We drove up to Dahlonega, Georgia. And you'll hear a version of this story twice. We're like, it's going to go right over there. There's the dirt pile. And he said, all right, great. So we started developing, the business model and the plan and the distillation, design. And he was very instrumental in that, and finally got that sucker up and running, which was cool. And like most people, right, when you're building a distillery, you run out of money.
Yeah, right.
On November, and I'm not sure the exact date, but about a year and a half in, 2 years to the build, on Thanksgiving, there's a knock on the door, and it's Zach Brown Band. He says, hey, he hangs out, this is cool. He has a house about a mile down the road, kind of hangs around, then says, hey, I'm interested in getting in. And we're like, I don't know. Let us think about it. Of course, of course. Yes.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah. So, Zach came in and kind of, I had about another 6-month run consulting with them, and got out, and they fully took over the space. And then I guess probably a year and a half later, they ended up closing the facility down.
Yeah.
So
that's wild. So you just kind of, hey, I kind of know Dave. I've talked to him before, but hey, let's just go ask him to partner with us on this.
Yeah, that's exactly what we did. It was a great experience. So Dave was really, he's one of the coolest guys you've ever met, right? His personality is big as all outdoors. Just this great guy, right? And we just really started becoming really good friends, and I'm just peppering him with questions all the time. And so as this kind of departure from this project, Dave actually called me and says, hey, man, you have the sales side of this. So you're already way ahead of most people. You understand how to route and market strategies. You understand how to brand build. He goes, the distillation piece is really the easy part of this. You should make another run at it. I said, okay. I said, but I want to go big, right? Because we realize we run out of money. The dollars weren't making sense. You couldn't make enough whiskey if your brand took off. So he's like, yep. All right. We started working on it. And then of course he passed away. And I had, putting together an investor group, 5 or 6 guys here in Atlanta. And, Dave was our perceived operator. he passed away, and it was at one point we didn't think we were gonna get it off the ground. And then I was actually good friends with Shane and Pat at Wilderness Trail. And
Oh yeah.
I called those guys and said, "Hey, I need some help." And like most folks in Kentucky, right? And they said, "Hey, okay, come on. What do you want to know? Come on up."
Yeah.
So I headed up to Danville and met with those guys, and they chuckled too, right? Like, "Hey, I'm going to build a distillery." All right, great. We haven't done
Sure.
that
Yeah.
before. So I went up there, and they were really, just pulled back the curtain and said, "Hey, take a look. Here's how we do this. Here's how we do this. What other
Wow.
questions do you have?" And I said, "Well, I have a lot of them." I started putting, together the model and what we wanted to do. And then was able to get a couple other bigger investors involved. And then we're kind of off to the races.
Yeah. Which is great. And, you talking about Pat and Shane. I mean, we've had Pat on the show just a couple of weeks ago, just a great guy. I've known Pat probably for 5 years myself. For a guy that just sold his distillery for $420 million or whatever they sold for. I mean, he's one of the most down to earth, he sings in a heavy metal rock band or whatever. And
he's good.
And he's a good
really
singer.
good.
He definitely is. But, you talk to him, he's got that country accent, and he just has he's got that big, long, scraggly looking beard sometimes. And you look at him, you're like, this guy is a multimillionaire, and he's the smartest guy in the world when it comes to yeast production. And it's just crazy, man. I mean, but he's such a down to earth, good dude. So how cool that you got to work with Dave. I never met Dave. We started doing this really, unfortunately, right around the time that he passed away. So I never had the opportunity to meet Dave. But everybody that has always talked about him, just what a wonderful guy he was, and how much of a difference he made, especially like you said, in the craft industry and people he worked with and the things that he did. But that's good to hear that Pat and Shane were also on board as well, to help you out. So let's talk a little bit about the name. I think it's good to kind of get that out of the way since we're drinking All Nations. I'm sure people out there are like, All Nations, what does that mean? So that's kind of a unique story, Ray. Do you care to share that with everybody?
Yeah. So when we were trying to find the county to reside in, we landed in Lancaster, Kentucky, in Garrard County. As we were, kind of driving over the county, looking at sites, the judge executive at the time, John Wilson, was, like most judge executives, telling you the history of Kentucky. Because everywhere you go, there's a story, right? Something's cool's happened there. There's a huge piece of history there, and typically it dates back to 1790 something. And we're driving across, like, hey, well, there's an old dilapidated house. He goes, "Yeah, I want to show you this. Garrard County is the birthplace of Prohibition, and this is Carrie Nation's home." And I didn't know the story at all, right? And then he says, yes, she's a prohibitionist. She was the president of the Women's Christian Temperance Union in 1901, and she famously ran around smashing saloons and bars up, to try to promote prohibition and kill alcohol altogether. And so famously across the country, there are signs in the saloons and bars that read, "All nations are welcome except Carrie." So I'm thinking, hey, this could be something, right? This could be some marketing gold here if we do it right. And so we pull up to the house, and it's stone, home. And I'm like, when was this thing built? He said it's 1840, or earlier. And I'm like, wow, this is cool. So we look at it, we think about it, we kind of move on, and we decided, yeah, we're going to go here. And I called the judge back. I said, hey, we have an idea for the brand, right? Do you think we can get the house? And he says, I don't know. Let's call a farmer, right? So we're working through the marketing. We come up with a name, and I'm like, this will be a cool idea if we can get the house. You have the leader of Prohibition, birthplace, on site, right? And so we go meet with a farmer, and he says, Yes, so you got to tear down the other structure and move the power from the house to the barn, and you can have it. And I thought, what a great idea. Let me think about it, right?
Yeah.
So we called him back in a day or two, obviously, and said yes. And me and three other workers, we actually tore the house down and moved it over to our distillery site and rebuilt it. And so now it is in pristine condition and looks like it would have in 1840 when it was built. And so,
Yeah, I mean, that's very cool. And I love the fact it's on, I noticed that on the bottles, on the neck tag, I think it also has that all nations are welcome.
Yep.
And then on the back, I think it says except Carrie.
yeah, little nod to her.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. Well, Matt, talking about the whiskey, this single barrel bourbon that we have here, the All Nations, coming in at 109.3 proof. What do you pick up on this one in terms of the palate and the finish, Matt?
Good and spicy on the palate. Lots of those baking spices come through with some heat as well. The cinnamon, the clove, a little bit of like ginger, nutmeg really come through and bring some punch on the palate. There's a smoothness, kind of like brown butter type sweet and rich flavor as well. That also leads into those red fruits that I picked up on the nose. I think kind of come through back of the finish. There's sort of like a cherry, almost cherry cola kind of note. Sort of has like that bright vibrancy, like a little bit of carbonated cola on the back end. Nice finish, good mouth coating, just really nice bourbon.
Yeah, it's funny, Matt, because talking about those red fruits that come back, because you do hit that spice right up front, right on the palate. It's there, it comes through, and then, like you said, that sweetness from those fruits come back through. And it's almost like, is this a finished bourbon? I mean, it's almost kind of have that, like a wine cask finished bourbon almost, just from those fruit notes coming back through. Very, very nice on that one. Now, obviously, there's no age statement on this one, Ray, so we know it's at least 4 years old. But do you have a range, or can you tell us what we're looking at in terms of age on this one?
Those are all 4 to 7 years old.
Okay, all right, great. So very nice. Yeah, man, I really, really like this. So let's talk a little bit. Well, we're almost in around one. I hate to jump into another topic since we're almost at the end, because we'll kill some time. But I tell you what, why don't we take a quick break since we're at the end of round one here. Ray, we'll take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors, and then we'll come back and we'll jump back in a little bit more about the brand itself and working with Dave and things like that. So, guys, everybody just sit tight, pour yourself a drink. Drink along with us if you're at home. Have a good time. We'll be back with more with Ray Franklin with Garrard County Distilling Company in just a minute.
Hey, I'm Carrie Van Winkle, coming to you from Pappy & Company, a brand I co-founded with my sisters and is deeply tied to our family's heritage. Our great-grandfather was the legendary bourbon pioneer Pappy Van Winkle, so we're all about honoring his legacy while reinventing those timeless traditions for our modern lifestyles. Our wide range of products reflect our family values and entrepreneurial spirit, from Pappy branded apparel to specialty foods, aged and retired bourbon barrels, barware, and premium cigars. Just like our bourbon, we're dedicated to quality small batch production and infusing those elements of joy into daily life. Exclusive to listeners, we're offering a 15% discount on your first order, so go to pappyco.com and use code BourbonLife15. Cheers!
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky.
All right, everybody, welcome back for round two of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here live in the Bourbon Life studios, out in his comfortable seat in the fireplace room, whatever you want to call it, it's my good friend, Matt. Matt, how are you doing out there tonight, man?
I'm good out here, Mark. And you in Mission Control, everything looking good?
Mission Control,
Soundboard
man.
up and sounding all right?
Everything's
Ship
going,
shape?
yeah, man. Everything's going well. So knock on wood. I'm thrilled. We're having a good show, right?
Absolutely, we are.
Yeah, a lot of fun here. I'm just sniffing on this bourbon. I need to stop. Anyway, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support, everything they do for us. Couldn't do the show, of course, without them. If you haven't checked out our episode we did from the Pappy BTAC raffle just a couple weeks ago, give that a listen. We had a lot of fun. We were on location up here at the Hamburg store. That's where Matt and I actually met, man, just hanging out for a raffle. So years ago. So yeah, check that one out, man. Liquor Barn, give them your support. We love those guys. Appreciate everything they do for us. Likewise, all of our other sponsors, we appreciate everything they do for us. Couldn't do the show without them. So Matt, with that said, you want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Absolutely. And I do have to add in here real quick, if you think that being sponsored by Liquor Barn does entitle us to winning at these raffles, Mark and I have never won a single bottle at any Liquor Barn raffle. So just clear the air right there.
Yeah.
But enough about that.
I digress.
Joining us, exactly. Joining us is the founder and president of Staghorn, which is owner of Garrard County Distilling Company right here in Lancaster, Kentucky.
Lancaster.
I said Lancaster, right?
You said Lancaster.
Lancaster.
Oh, God. Don't run me out of town. I'm a foreigner. Ray Franklin. Ray, welcome on, and please accept my humble apologies for butchering the name there.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, we appreciate it. It's funny because we were talking off camera there. The fact it's Garrard County, even though it's spelled Garrard, in Kentucky, we pronounce it Garrard County. And we were talking about that people are going to know. You're going to know when you have visitors from out of the state because they're going to come in and they're going to call it Garrard County or Girard County, right? So it's a telltale sign.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Good talking.
Or they'll call, like Matt from Michigan, they'll call it Lancaster. And not call it.
If my nasally northern accent doesn't give it away, like already me butchering all these Kentucky names.
They don't play hockey down there in Lancaster, Matt, okay? So come on, man.
That's right.
So anyway, we're having a good time tonight, man. We're having a lot of fun with Ray Franklin, with Garrard County Distilling Company. And we've got another single barrel poured up. After I opened it and poured it, I realized I'm like, I probably shouldn't have opened this one. This is like bottle 28 from barrel number 8. So this is obviously one of your first barrels, I'm assuming, if the numbering, it goes along with your barrel acquisition.
Yep.
Even if it doesn't, it's still cool to say I have a bottle from barrel number 8 from Garrard County Distilling. And it's a single barrel, right? So, we talked about that. Obviously, single barrels are different from barrel to barrel. This is 110 proof. So, Ray, real quick, all these barrels, we talked about it earlier, from Danville. So everything is from Danville?
Everything's from Danville.
Okay,
Yep.
Great. Good to know that one. And this one steps up the proof point just a touch. I think we were at 109.3 on the first one. This one's 111. So not much of a jump on this one. Matt, what do you pick up in terms of the nose on this one?
I think there are similarities, but also some differences between the first two. Assuming these are similar mash bills of similar age, right around the same proof point. But some of those similarities come through where there is kind of that toffee, that vanilla, sort of that nougaty, almost like chewiness on the nose. But this one to me is less fruity and a little nuttier.
Yeah.
It's more like pecan, more of sort of a roasted nut type aroma. I think also more barrel influence on this one as well. I'm picking up more char, more of the wood notes, almost like a really nice like pencil shaving type note on this as well. I mean that in a good way, not like I don't consider that to be a bad
It smells like a Ticonderoga number 2.
It's right, number 2. But it just has like more of an earthy barrel type influence to it rather than like those rich red fruits that I think we picked up on the first one.
Yeah.
What do you think, Mark?
It's funny because the first nose, when I started nosing it, I got like a hint of butterscotch to it. You're talking about vanilla coming through, but honestly, man, as soon as I nosed it, as soon as I poured it, it was just, there was butterscotch to me. That's the way that comes across. Not as much fruit, like you said, Matt. But it's still there. I do pick it up, not a spiciness. And it's like you said, same distillation, same distiller that made this. They're like Ray, I think you said somewhere, between 4 and 7 years. So this one could be older. Matt, you talked about a little barrel influence. I see where you're getting that for sure. So perhaps this barrel could potentially be actually older. And I'm not saying that just because it's number 8, but from Matt, what you're saying in terms of the nosing, that would make sense. Perhaps it is a little bit of an older single barrel. But yeah, man, really nice, but different. There are similarities, like you said, Matt, but it's different, and that's the unique thing about single barrels. So Ray, let's kind of jump back into the conversation about the brand. So you had your brand. Zach Brown comes knocking on the door and says, "Hey, here's a truckload of money. You guys, I want your distillery." So that works out well for you. So then you decide, "Hey, I'm going to start something else." So Dave comes back and says, "Hey, I think you should do something." Can you kind of talk about that process, your mindset and what it was that made you say, "Yeah, I mean, this is something I really want to continue and pursue"?
No, absolutely. I realized quickly, we couldn't make enough whiskey if our brand actually took off with the pot still operation. And then, you started really looking at Bardstown Bourbon and these other folks and what they're doing. You go, okay, well, as I found out the first go around, it's a costly endeavor. And you've got to pay the bills. And so, contract distillation is a pretty big part of our business model.
Yeah.
In order to brand build and kind of grow the business the way we wanted. So, Dave was really, his thing was one-off pot still operations, right? Like if you go around the country and his fingerprints are on a lot of places. But they weren't necessarily large-scale operations that, you had to be really good at cutting head, hearts, and tails in these operations. And Dave is one of the few that could do that. So I really kind of said, hey, I want to get a little bigger, get into the column still distillation contract side, build a big brand, kind of roll it out. We can't do that at this scale. So in the midst of, kind of working out the napkin notes and design of the place, like I said, Dave, kind of passed away. Right? He did pass away. At that point, I was like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to lose some investors. I lost a couple of them. And then, like I said, that's really when I kind of leaned on Shane and Pat over Wilderness Trail for some guidance at that point. So those guys are, as you all know, some of the best humans on the planet. Super nice, extremely helpful. And although they won't tell you what to do, they'll kind of give you option A, option B, you can do this, or you can do that. They're both good options, but allow you to kind of make your own decisions. And after spending a lot of time with them, I had a good game plan. And we kind of shoved off with it and raised the capital to get going in Garrard County. Quietly, by the way.
Yeah, very quietly.
Yeah, extremely quietly.
Well,
oh, man.
It helps to, if you want to do something very quiet, just dial up a global pandemic. That helps.
Yeah,
So
yeah, no doubt.
We were going to announce, actually, and the governor's office called me when we were in the midst of, announcing, and we had bought the land, and they said, hey, you might want to hold off. We're shutting down the planet. And they announced, the closures for COVID at that point. And so our entire investment group was like, oh my God, the world's ending. What should we do? I said, well, if we're all going to die, let's just keep building and see what happens. Because last time I was in Kentucky, they hadn't stopped making any whiskey at all. So let's keep pushing forward.
Right. Yeah. Which is crazy because, we started the podcast right during the pandemic, right at the beginning, 2 weeks before the pandemic, the announcement, we had this great idea. We're going to go to all these distilleries across the state. We're going to visit everybody in person. We're going to have this great show. It's going to be so much fun. And then 2 weeks later, Governor Beshear is on the TV like, you guys aren't going anywhere.
Nope.
Nobody's going to do anything. We're closing the state. We're sorry.
Yep.
So man, that's got to be tough, right? So you have to pivot. We had to pivot. A lot of businesses had to pivot. So can you talk a little bit about that process and how you guys worked through that?
Absolutely. Well, we were fortunate. We didn't have a business, right? We were building one.
Yeah. Right.
And we had to talk to general contractors and everyone, it's like, hey, we keep working. So, nobody was working at the time, right? Everybody was at home, watched TV, cleaning off your groceries before you bought them in the house, wiping your shoes off, all this stuff. Now you're like, why did I do that?
Yeah.
But it allowed us to put, people to work in the county. We were fortunate. So the county did the bulk of our earthwork. So there's nothing going on. So we were able to put the entire county road department to work. They had nothing to do.
Oh,
wow. Yeah.
So they started building roads. They started doing, site excavation. And it was really just an amazing time for us. So we're quietly building and putting people to work. And, we worked with the general contractor and called them up, and they're like, well, yeah, we can work outside. We got nothing going on. So, and we'd already put our money down with Vendome. And so even in the most trying of times, we were really fortunate, where a lot of people you couldn't, there's delays, or we don't have enough people, or our biggest problem was materials, but just human resources, they were abundant. And they were working outside, so we were able to put a lot of people to work in that time and just kept slowly chipping away at it and quietly building one of the biggest distilleries in the country that nobody knew about.
Nobody knew about it, man. Yeah. I mean, we were all just, shell shocked, when the announcement came. I guess it was the first of this year, right? Yeah. That was when the announcement came out. And we do a show called The Crew Show. There's 3 or 4 of us that get together. And we talk about some bourbon history or bourbon news, et cetera. And we are just all like, nobody knew. We had no clue. And we're just all like, and we consider ourselves to be pretty, dialed in and in touch with things that are going on, man. This one's like just right past us. And we're just all like, how in the hell did these guys manage to build this huge distillery without anybody knowing about it, man? Kudos to you guys.
Well, let's face it, not many people are driving down Main Street and
I was going to say, yeah, Garrard County isn't like a hot spot of tourism for, at least at this point. You guys are going to be working on that, right? But people don't wake up in the morning and say, I'm going to head down to Lancaster and hang out for the day, right?
No, they don't. And you wouldn't have known much. Boy, you drive down Main Street now, you'll be like, oh, there it is. It's pretty big and present in town.
So, along those lines, it's unique because Garrard County is a dry county. Now Lancaster's not, but you're going in. So what was the thought process? How did you arrive at the fact, hey, we're going to go into this county that's dry?
Well, it led to part of our story, right, with the All Nations brand and Carey Nation. So
right,
we're like, their county's dry, the city's wet, right, which is moist, all right, is the term. Which always makes me chuckle, but we thought it would be great, right? You've got the distillery in Lancaster, which is wet, and then Carey Nation's house was to be in the county, which is dry. So you could go to her place and it's dry, which is 50 yards from the distillery, and then you would be, in Lancaster, which is wet. And we had drawn it up, moved the property lines, everything, in the dry county. And we had so much support from everybody in town and the county. They got so excited. They thought they were doing us a favor, and they pushed the vote to make the entire county wet. And so we were, we were like, well, great. It kind of ruined our story a little bit, but the folks there in the town and the mayor and judge executive, it really just rolled out the red carpet for us. And they're like, we're doing these guys a favor, so we appreciate them. So but we're gonna keep telling the story regardless, right?
Yeah, that's a great story, because I think I heard somewhere or read somewhere, because at the time you guys were actually kind of annexed in, right? So you were in the county area.
Yeah, it was all in city. Dry County, and then they annexed just the distillery building into the city.
Yeah, man, you gotta love attorneys.
Right? They're good.
Yeah, man, we know how to get things done. But that's a great story. I love that. But that's just crazy that you guys were able to fly under the radar for that long, building that big of a distillery. And speaking of which, Can you kind of talk about the distillery itself? Talk about in terms of your capacity, your size. I mean, I know you guys you've got a huge operation down there. And again, which goes to the miraculousness of your ability to pull this off with nobody really knowing. But can you talk about the size and everything, what's going on down there?
Oh, no, absolutely. So we can do over 8.5 million proof gallons, which is, roughly 150,000 barrels annually.
Man, it's crazy. Crazy.
Right. I think from a capacity standpoint, we're we're in the top 10 distilleries in the country. We have, I think to our knowledge, we're the guy, first independent guys probably other than in Heaven Hill to actually build the scale right out of the gate. Most people expand to a second column or, whatever they're doing. We came right out of the gate, mostly for efficiencies. When you try to add on anything later, it's challenging.
Sure.
So, but it's it's a big one.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. But now I'd heard, I think you did a show, podcast, a brief interview or something I listened to, and you were talking about, not just domestic, but looking globally. We had a guest on last week, Zach Johnson, that used to write for Up Rocks. He's with Blackwood Distilling Company now over in Woodford County. And he was talking about that. They don't have a distillery they're sourcing at this point, but he was talking about the global markets and the emergence of those global markets. And I think that's going to be kind of a huge play for you guys as well, or at least part of your packaging. Can you kind of talk about that in terms of strategy for you guys, what you're thinking in terms of the bourbon market?
No, absolutely. Well, if you look at consumption rates and not in COVID, right, they're still really good, right? 7% maybe year over year. I mean, you kind of got to throw out 20 through 23, in my opinion. But bourbon is, to the world, veritably unknown, right? In the U.S., it's commonplace for us. But you look at India and China, and there's just not a whole lot out there, right? You get your duty free, right? Blanton's and some of the Sazerac stuff, Jim Beam and those guys, but nobody's really penetrated, India or China. And, I kind of got that bug. I was working with a guy in Virginia who had done a deal with the ag department, and it's kind of what spurred it for me. He's like, hey man, China's sending everything over here and nothing's going back. We're working on a deal as a cooperative to, fill tankers up and send them back to China. So I was like, oh really? He's sending tankers of distillate back to China.
Oh, wow.
Right.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, well, that makes sense. And then I said, but what about, India? It's like the 4th, 5th largest economy in the world. There's billions of people. And, 2 or 3 states there are 600, 700 million people. And they all have a thirst for anything American, right? American basketball, football, bourbon, whiskey. So we felt like that was a great market to enter. And, we've been working through that now. So it looks like we've got a few JV partners in both China and India. So it's going to allow us to kind of open up the world versus, the lower 48.
Yeah, and I think that's great, because we talked about that last week with Zach, the fact that, okay, people talk, oh, there's a bubble. It's like, well, you know what, domestically, consumption is still there. Even if it declines, there's still these emerging international markets, Asia, Europe, like you talked about India as well. And Zach was even talking about, like, even into Mexico, that there's still like this thirst for, Mexico or for whiskey down there as well, which is kind of strange because you always think Mexico, you think tequila.
Right.
But, he's talking about all these different emerging markets. And it's like, look, even if it goes down domestically, we still have so many opportunities to get into these other markets. So, I mean, that's great. So that was going to be a question, but you kind of answered that in terms of going all in because you guys, you obviously went. It wasn't just like, hey, let's just build a small operation and see what's going on, right? I mean, you guys said, let's just do it.
Let's just do it. Well, it's like when you're a kid, right? And coming in late, you can't come in later. You're either late or you're not. So
Yeah, that's a good
we
point.
said, let's go for it.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
we were able to pull it off in the most challenging of times. And, we experienced a lot of pitfalls along the way, and we overcame those as well in COVID, and had a fermenter fall in our building at one point, delayed us 6 months. I mean, I've got a ton of great stories for you. So we're I say that to get to this. People talk about consumptions and what are you going to do and can you sell barrels? I mean, we've seen the most challenging of times, so we're finally to the fun part. We're excited about our operation and brand building, and I quite frankly think we're in the golden age of distillation. So
I would agree with you 100% with regard to that. The golden age of bourbon. I think we're here. That's my feeling as well. So we're almost around end of round 2 here, but Matt, we need to talk about the palate and the finish on this one. So what do you pick up on this barrel number 8 that we've been sipping on?
It's got that familiar spiciness to the first one, the first barrel that we tried, 3124. Not as spicy to me, I think, on the palate. Like, I don't get as much of the baking spice, but I'm picking up like pecan pie. It's got that nuttiness. It's got the sweetness that you would get from like that corn syrup filling that you would bake in with the pie as well. Good sweetness, good richness. Then there's also some of those red fruits that cherry comes across again on the palate, almost the sweetness with it as well. Kind of like maraschino or Luxardo cherry. And then a good long finish. I think the heat starts coming with the finish, a little bit of that cinnamon and some of the baking spices, and those barrel influences come in the finish as well. Yeah.
I mean, I can't say much more than that, Matt. I still get that butterscotch. To me, you're talking about pecan pie and the filling. So maybe what you're saying is pecan pie to me. That translates as butterscotch, maybe. That sweetness, I don't know, but I picked that up on the palate. But the spiciness, like you said, I agree 100% on that. No question about it. But the barrel influence does come through on this one more too. I think so. Mm-hmm. I think I agree with you on that, Matt, that I seem to be picking up more of the barrel influence on this particular single barrel. So yeah, very nice, man. I really like this one, Ray. 111 proof. That's right in my wheelhouse.
Thank you.
Not too hot, not going to burn you up, but nice to sip on.
Well, nice. We're going to have to hire Matt to write our descriptors for us too. Really?
I'd love to.
Yeah. You know what? He is my color commentary guy. So man, the show would not be the same without Matt and his palate.
I've got one job on this show.
Well,
damned if I don't get it right.
You're so much better than me. They're like, what do you think? I'm like, that's good.
Yeah.
Hey, the binary scale works pretty well too for that, right?
Yeah, it's good.
It's good. It's not good.
It's good. Yeah.
On to the next one.
Well, guys, we're at the end of round 2 here. Let's take a quick break.
All right.
We'll get a word from our sponsors. We'll come back with more with Ray Franklin with Garrard County Distilling Company in just a minute.
Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
Bluegrass Distillers is a craft distillery with a passion for producing exceptional bourbon. They're committed to the art of distillation, using locally sourced grains to create a distinct and flavorful bourbon that captures the essence of Kentucky's rich whiskey heritage. Bluegrass Distillers takes pride in their small batch, hands-on approach, ensuring quality and attention to detail in every bottle they make, like their limited release 9-year-old Elkwood Reserve Bourbon, which is currently available for purchase at their brand new Visitor Center in Midway, Kentucky, their distillery in Lexington, and select stores throughout Kentucky. And with their new distillery slated to begin operation in spring of 2024, you'll be able to pick up even more exceptional spirits from them, like their wheated bourbon and their blue corn bourbon in the spring and fall. For more details and to plan your visit, check out their website at bluegrassdistillers.com. All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and sadly final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me here tonight live in the Bourbon Life Studios, it is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing out there, man?
Mark, I am great out here. And you and yourself, you're doing well?
I'm doing well. I'm making it through, man. It's been a fun show. And I hate that we're in the third and final round already, because I think we could carry this conversation on for a lot longer. We've got 3 great bottles we've been sipping on, and there's plenty more we could go back and sip on as well, right? But
yeah, and it sounds like we've already got plans off air for another date and time to continue the conversation.
Yeah, no doubt about that. That'll be a lot of fun. So we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support, everything they do for us, and all of our sponsors as well. We couldn't do the show without their help. So Matt, with that said, would you like to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Joining you this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever your Bourbon Life Podcast is coming to you, is Ray Franklin, the founder and president of Staghorn, owner of Garrard Garrard County Distilling Company.
Wow.
I can't believe it.
Matt.
Ray, welcome on back. I did it again. I'm sorry.
You're doing so good with the descriptors, but not the name. But
yeah,
I have 2 jobs: give descriptors and introduce the guests. I guess I'm batting 500.
Yeah,
that's pretty
Matt.
good. You get the Hall of Fame in baseball if you do that.
I was going to say, in baseball, man,
So
you'd be an all-star right now, right?
Yeah, I'll take those numbers all day, twice on Sunday.
Oh, no doubt about it. Well, Ray, we're having a good time, man. We're hanging out, drinking. Appreciate you joining us tonight. Appreciate you guys getting us these bottles as well. This round, All Nations Single Barrel Bourbon. This is barrel number 3120. And this is bottle number, looks like 180. My eyesight's terrible. It's either 160 or 180. It's one of the two. But again, this is coming in at 111 proof. So same proof point as the other barrel that we just drank. But again, then these bottles, right? Let's talk about this. The design, the label, simplicity right here. Just a nice single label, nice name, gold foil, simple label on the back. There's just not a whole lot to it. The glass is beautiful. I mean, you don't want to say that a bottle is sexy, but man, this bottle is really just a beautiful bottle. Nice thick glass base here as well, which I really love the look of that. So can you talk a little bit about the bottle design and everything, what went into making that decision on that?
So that goes back to the Dave Pickerell days at Stillhouse Creek in Dahlonega, Georgia. So our brand never made it or saw the light of day, but we, after countless hours of decision making, landed on that bottle. And I like tradition and history, and you'll see when you come on site too what I mean by that. So there, all along my path to get to where we are today, there are little bits and pieces that I took with me, and the bottle was one of those. So that meant a lot to me with Dave being involved and our other 2 friends there in Georgia. So I was able to kind of see it through to the shelf, if you will.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice. I mean, I love the look of it, man. It really captures your attention. And I think, as a bartender as well, the shape of the bottle, it's got the nice design. It's easy to grab. Just really nice, but just beautiful design. Very, very simple, but very elegant at the same time, man. So very, very nice. So, Ray, we were talking about the brand, talking about, the formation and things, but you've also assembled a really good team that's working with you there. Can you talk a little bit about the people that are involved with you there at Garrard County Distilling?
No, absolutely. So our plant manager and head distiller, Dave DeVoe, he was formerly an MGP, and we wanted to make, in my mind, it's real simple. I'm not a distiller. I'm the dreamer. I'm the capital raiser. I'm the guy that, your friends go, hey, you can't do that. I'm like, hold on a minute. I think I can. And so we met Dave through Shane and Pat when we were looking. We said we leaned on them for a lot of things, right? And I needed someone to help, in the really front end of it with kind of design and process. And Dave had worked prior, even to MGP. It's 2 of the largest ethanol plants in the country. And in my mind, I was like, okay, well, we do 35 to 45 gallon per minute. He's doing 3,500 gallon per minute. So this is probably a small operation for him. And I was like, well, MGP makes some of the best rye whiskey on the planet, and I want to make rye whiskey. So why don't I go hire those guys? Then, like I said, he happened to be really good friends with Pat, and he introduced us, and we were able to talk him into coming on board. And he's done an amazing job from day one.
Yeah. Well, that's nice. I mean, that's good. You get a good group of people working with you there. Obviously, that's going to be super important. Matt, you know what I realized I just did?
I know.
Yeah. I forgot to talk about the nose on the whiskey. I just jumped right into the conversation.
You were so excited.
Man. I haven't done that in a while. I've been pretty good about it, Matt. So, hey, let's jump back. Let's dial it back in. We'll reel it back in a little bit. Let's go back and talk about the nose on this single barrel that we're enjoying in round 3. Matt, what do you pick up on that one?
To me, the nose on this is like cinnamon raisin toast. It's really, really prominent, exactly kind of what I'm getting. There's the savory sweetness from like a raisin, definitely a lot of cinnamon on this, a nice bready toasted note as well. I think the barrel plays some influence in sort of those toasted notes coming through, a slight oaky char note with it as well. There's almost like this orange or like citrus undertone on the nose as well that I pick up. But this one is very different from the other two, I think.
Yeah, I agree. When I first nosed it, it was almost like a brown butter type of aroma to it. Just something very, very unique, very nice. But you talk about cinnamon raisin bread. I mean, Matt, everything you said there, it's like, yeah, I can see that. I'm picking that out. But I agree. This nose is completely different than the other two. And I was just going to say, this is probably my favorite nose of the 3. I mean, the other 2 were very nice, but this one, there's just something very different, very unique about it. Really, really like this one, man. No doubt about it. I'm going to have to work on the palate and finish here shortly. So Ray, let's just jump back. Now these barrels we talked about, they are sourced.
Yes.
So you have been sourcing things, but now you guys are also distilling. You started your distillation at the beginning of this year. Is that right?
We started at the beginning of this year. Now we did have those distilled. So.
Okay. All right. I got you.
So they are.
So they were contract distilling. Okay.
Yeah. Distilled for you.
Yep.
I got you. Okay. Well, that's good to know. Cause I was going to ask you in terms of, once you switch over, cause you guys are laying down your own stuff now. So it won't be really, hopefully it shouldn't be a big change because they were distilling what you guys wanted. Correct.
That's right. So they shouldn't have a big issue switching over to ours from what we had distilled there in Danville. So
I gotcha. Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense. And then I'm sure you got access to a lot of yeast as well if you need it. So you can do whatever.
Yes. Yes.
Whatever you need to do with that, right?
That's right.
Now you have your own facility there. You've already built it, right? So you got rick houses on site. How many rick houses do you guys have now?
We have 3 rick houses on site.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 single story, like you might see at Jim Beam, the single story 6 rick. And then we have a traditional 6-story rick house and 3 or 4 sites prepped and ready to go for the next one.
Yeah. So those barrels that were distilled for you guys, have you brought those on site? Are they aging with you guys now, or are they still where they were distilled?
No, all our liquid assets are on site.
Great. And you guys, do you do your own bottling there too already?
No, not yet.
Okay. I was going to say, I didn't know if you guys are that, I mean, that's a big step, right? To add the bottling aspect to it as well. So
coming soon.
Coming soon. Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of coming soon, let's just talk a little bit about some things. Cause like I said, some of the things I've read before, I'd listened to you do another show as well and talked about other SKUs, things that you guys are really working on. And I think even this year, you're looking at the possibility of doing some other things. Can you talk a little bit about where you guys are with that and what consumers might be able to expect from you guys?
No, absolutely. We fully intend to have a full portfolio of brands, similar to Sazerac and some of the other folks. You'll see a lot of barrel finish things coming from us. But we really wanted to start with, if you look at, the legacy guys, right? Everybody's got that core, that Jim Beam or
right,
or whoever. So in my opinion, being from a wholesale distribution background, you really need to dig in with that core, your best friend you can count on every day, drinker, so to speak. And then you can build out from there, right? Add your weeded skew, your rye, barrel finish. And we have a really, really strong innovation team. Like we were talking about Jacob earlier, our chemical engineer, who was at Beam prior. They're just, super creative. So we got a lot of things cooking, but I wouldn't be surprised to see, 3-4 more SKUs in all nations, and then, 2 or 3 other brand sets from us as well.
Oh, okay. All right. Wow. Very, very cool. That's good to know. Now the all nations that we've got here, I didn't ask in terms of price point, what's the kind of range that we're looking at for these bottles?
That single barrel is, I have to look at my notes, but I think we're, probably going to be around $90.
Oh, okay. All right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a nice price point. When you get something like this that tastes this good, that looks this nice, I mean, that's an easy price point, right?
Easy price point. We want to be approachable.
Sure.
We're going to get in non-distiller producer talk here for a minute, but some of those price points, they have to be where they are, right? Because they sourced.
Right.
So no hate towards them, but I really wanted people to be able to afford, what they wanted to drink from me day in and day out, and make it super approachable. And people go, gosh, man, that thing could sell for $150, or, our Kentucky Straight is going to come in at about a $39 ring. So in my mind, it's like, I want to give you a bottle for $40 that in people's eyes is worth $80. If you're paying $100, that could be a $200 bottle. And really give you a really good whiskey at a really good value. So you'll keep buy another.
Buy some more. That's exactly right. So Matt, we had the nice card that came with the bottles. I think, Matt, you have it out there. And you pointed out something, Matt, before we started the show at the very bottom. It says that they are experts in rye, wheated bourbon, and I think it also referenced American single malt. Is that right, Matt?
It does. It says single malt whiskey.
Single malt whiskey.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that, Ray? Because that's obviously kind of a hot buzzword, right? American single malts. A lot of people are getting into that market. I mean, craft distillers have been in it for a while. The big distillers, Beam put out Claremont Steep. Bullet just put out their American single malt. So there's a lot of players that are coming into that space. So that's something you guys are into or getting there?
We are into it. We're now about 15,000 barrels already made on site, and 2,000 of those are single malt. And we will continue and we're experimenting a lot in the single malt. I think the first rounds went in new charred 59-gallon barrels. I have 500 in that, and like the first 2,000, it's all experiments, right? So we've got 53-gallon used, we've got 59-gallon, char 4, so I've got 53-gallon, char 2, medium toast. So we've got a lot of cool things going on in that single malt space, and I really think, as I'm sure you all would agree, the best whiskey in the world is made in Kentucky, and I don't see any reason that we wouldn't add single malt to that. And in my mind, it's a Kentucky single malt.
Yeah, so, no, I agree with that. I'm not a Scotch guy at all, but I'm telling you what, some of these American single malts that I've been enjoying, really becoming a fan of that. So, and I think the category, rumor has it, maybe by the end of May, that finalization may come through, and we may actually see a category. So,
well, there's a lot of cool stuff happening there. I'm also a board member on the Kentucky Distillers Association, so you're about to see a lot of cool stuff coming out.
Oh, good.
That's great. So, Ray, are you guys part of the craft tour, the trail at this point, or
we're about to be? We still have a little bit of work to do, so you've got a couple of hurdles to cross where they'll allow you to join the trail. We 100% will join.
Yeah.
And we're just not quite ready for the hospitality piece in the general public, but it won't be long.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. So you're not quite open to the public just yet. Is that right? Or
no, that we're currently finishing out the front right corner of the building is the hospitality piece for now. We do have plans to build a restaurant and a visitor center. We're sitting on 210 acres, so we've got a lot of cool things dialed up for the property. We're mainly trying to get a road in. We got a service entrance. We're working on the public entrance. Once that's completed in the parking lot, the inside will be ready to go. So by late spring, early summer, we'll be able to have the public on site.
Okay, that's good to know. Matt, let's jump back over a little bit and talk about this palate and finish on this one, because we're kind of getting closer to the end of the round here. So what do you pick up in terms of the palate and finish on this?
This one is spicy.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of good heat and spice right on the front of the palate. The cinnamon comes through, baking spice. Just like the proof. This is 111 proof, but I think it comes across a little warmer to me.
Yep.
Yeah. It brings some heat with it. But after you get through that big punch and those nice, big, bold rye notes right up front, it takes a turn kind of for the floral. Actually, I think I'm picking up some floral notes on it. Sort of has like a springtime flower, like rose petal kind of notes, like a sweet floral type palette to it as well, almost like peachy, kind of like peach or like light nectarine on the palate as well. Then just nice, good like Kentucky corn rye warm finish with like nice honeys and good flavored aromas on the finish. Just goes down really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I can't add anything to that, Ray. I mean, Matt just kills it, so I can't add anything to that. So talking about barrels and we're talking about barrel influence and things. You guys work with a couple of different cooperages, is that correct?
Yes. Independent Stave, Zach Cooperage, and Speyside. And now for our American single malt, now we use wine grade barrels that have been dry aged 24 months.
Oh, nice.
Seasoned. Yeah, so we do have some other barrels in the mix as well, but for our bourbon and rye, we're sticking with those three cooperages.
Yeah,
I imagine with your capacity, you're getting barrels rolling in there on the constant, so you're seeing a lot of wood coming and going through there.
There are a lot of trucks throughout the day, both stillage trucks, barrel trucks, and right now, I think, believe it or not, it's 35, 40 semis a day are rolling through our property.
Oh my gosh.
So,
God.
yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's a lot. That's a lot, Ray.
It's
just crazy. I still can't think, and the fact that you guys were just like under the radar the whole time that you guys are building, like.
It's been an amazing experience for me. Flying under the radar, and I'm always blown away that guys like yourself and Dave, guys like, hey, they want to do a podcast with you. I'm like, really? Somebody wants to talk to me about it? That's cool. But for me, it's like, I know Jim Rutledge and Dave Pickerell, of course, Shane and Pat, and Greg Davis at Beam, and it's like I played baseball in high school, so it's kind of like, I watched Nolan Ryan, it's like you went to college and then you got to play in the leagues with Nolan Ryan. It's kind of like that for me. I'm like so excited. These guys are kind of, all-stars to me. So it's super cool to be in the industry and to know those folks and to now be, a part of that bourbon culture. It's been an amazing experience.
Yeah, very cool. I'm excited for you guys, man. Excited to see where all this goes. So, Ray, you kind of talked a little bit about the future and other things coming out. Anything else in terms of the future of the brand, where you guys are headed? Anything else you want to share? Any big news or anything that, breaking news?
Well, we're, outside of entering India, right? We fully intend to have a lot of other pieces on site to keep people, in Garrard County a while. But I think our biggest breaking news was the build one of the largest distilleries in the country without anybody finding out. Like, how do you hide the elephant in the room, right?
Yeah, and that I agree. That's the biggest breaking news ever, right there. At least for the past 5 or 6 years in the bourbon industry, that you guys built that place, got up and running, and it's like, hey, we're here, and it's like, what? Yeah.
Well, it's good and bad. So, I mean, the other thing, a lot of people still don't know who we are. So, we're trying to get the word out.
Well, we're going to do the best we can to help you out, Ray. So we're doing our part here. No question about it. So
Absolutely.
What has been, I always like to ask my guests this question. What's been the best part overall of your journey so far? What's been the best part for you?
All the people, right? The people in the industry, the Marks and Matts of the world, the Pats of the Shane, of the world, and just, I remember, and I tell this story all the time. I asked Pat one day, and Pat and I are really close. We've ended up becoming really good friends. And I said, Pat, why? They never charged me a penny, right? I asked, I was like, why did you help me? And they're like, well, you kind of cut from the same cloth, from rural town, rural America. You've worked hard, you worked your way up. And Pat said, and then Shane came to me one day. He goes, you need to keep, continue to help Ray. He goes, what? He goes, well, he's actually going to build it. He's actually going to do it. And I was like, you think? He goes, oh yeah. He goes, we knew, he said, we get approached all the time by people who need help. We're going to build a distillery. We're going to do this. And he said, he got to a point where like, Ray's actually going to do it. So, their fingerprints are on it. They're good people, and they weren't gonna let me fail. And that's been really the most amazing piece to me is the Kentucky hospitality, and people just roll out the red carpet for you, and they're so helpful and kind. I mean, it's one of the best places on the planet, in my opinion. Well,
I appreciate that. As a native Kentuckian, lifelong, born here, man, I appreciate that. And I feel the same way. That's why I've never left my state. I mean, I love it here. And that's why I love doing the podcast, because I get to be kind of an ambassador, not just for bourbon, but also for Kentucky. And I enjoy being able to do that, man. So it's a lot of fun. So currently you're not open to the public just yet, but sometime hopefully later in the spring or early summer, you guys should be at that point, I guess. Then
should be there. Then we're really trying to dial in the tasting room hospitality piece, really make it a unique experience. And you'll love it too when you get there. I always liked all the tours and looking at all the distilleries. But, if you look at the old ones there, 4 walls and a roof, right? Or compartmentalized, or you see this part, or you don't get to see that part. But I envisioned a distillery where you were just completely immersed in the distillation process. So no matter if you're in my tasting room or in the office, or you can see the still house, or you can see the fermenters. We didn't hide things, there are pipes everywhere, but very nicely done. And you really just totally immersed in the experience. It's really cool. I can't wait for you guys to come out and take a look around.
Definitely looking forward to being able to do that sometime, hopefully very, very soon. So Ray, where can people get more information about the brand, and where can they find your products?
You can find us at Garrard County Distilling Co.com or Staghorn.com. We also have Facebook and IG accounts as well. And we are currently in Kentucky, Tennessee, and Georgia, but we are finalizing a nationwide distribution plan that should roll out June, July across 15 states, starting in the South.
Wow.
And working our way across the country. So we'll be in 15 this year, and then we'll add another 15 in 25.
That's awesome, man. Congratulations on that. That's huge.
Thank you.
No doubt about it.
Thank you.
So Ray, before we close it out tonight, any final thoughts, anything you want to add before we get out of here?
No, just thank you all so much for having me, man. What a great time. Please come see us at Garrard County Distilling Company, and we look forward to seeing everybody soon.
Yeah, well, we appreciate that very much. We'll definitely come out there and visit. Maybe we can do this again, and we'll do it in person together on site or something. That'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely. We'll hit the Carey Nation House and have a tasting in there.
That'd be great. Matt, any final thoughts before we wrap it up tonight, man?
Hey, Ray, thanks for taking the time to sit down with us, all of our guests, our listeners here. It really has been a great conversation. It's cool and inspiring to hear from someone that dreamt it, thought about it, and actually went through and did it. Didn't get cold feet, and did it to the scale and did it to the specs and everything that you wanted to. You weren't cutting corners. You didn't sacrifice on anything. You saw the vision and you stayed wholeheartedly towards it. I'm really excited to see what you all have put together. And if what we've tasted tonight has been any indication, I think the whole world is really in for a big treat.
No, thank you for the kind words.
Yep, I agree with that, Matt. 100%, no doubt about it, Ray. I'm excited for you guys. I'm excited we had this show. So happy to get you on here and discover. I'm going to start calling you like the Wizard of Oz, man. The guy behind the curtain. This beautiful, beautiful facility. Everything that was built right under our noses here in Kentucky. We didn't even know about it, and you're behind the curtains pulling the strings, man. So kudos to you for that. Very, very cool. Great whiskey. Enjoyed drinking this bourbon tonight. Very good stuff. All three selections we've had have been just absolutely wonderful. Looking forward to seeing how you guys grow as well. So really looking forward to that, and hopefully get out there soon to visit you guys. So thanks again for joining us. And with that said, of course, we are the Bourbon Life Podcast presented by Liquor Barn. We appreciate their support, the support of all of our sponsors. Like I said before, we can't do the show without all of their help. And like Matt says, whatever time of day it is, morning, noon, or night, whenever it is, you get your Bourbon Life fix on. We appreciate you taking the time to join us and listening in. You can join us on Facebook or Instagram at The Bourbon Life. We also have our private Facebook group, The Bourbon Lifers. We'd love to have you join us in there. We have some fun conversations going on. So check that out. Join us. We'd love to have you in there. If you want to reach out to us, you can email us at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. Also, if you would, check out our good friend Mike, Big Chief, doing the Whiskey Trip podcast. He's under our umbrella. He puts out a new episode every Tuesday. He's also on Instagram and Facebook as the Whiskey Trip. So check out Big Chief and his show, The Whiskey Trip. We'd appreciate your support for him as well. If you feel so inclined, please leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform, as long as it's positive. No, just kidding. But we'd love to hear from you. And thank you guys again for listening. We really appreciate that. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up, send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.
Welcome to the kitchen table at James B. Beam Distilling Company, where every visit is a celebration of tradition and flavor. Did you know that the kitchen table is nestled right within the heart of the distillery? That's right. You can experience the essence of James B. Beam's legacy while savoring their delectable dishes. Join them every Wednesday through Sunday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. for a culinary journey like no other. Planning a special event? Let the kitchen table be your host, creating unforgettable memories for you and your guests. And don't miss their exclusive Behind the Beam tour and monthly Claremont Supper Club events, which will feature their Overholt special releases at the April 18th event. For more information and reservations, visit beamdistilling.com. The kitchen table at James B. Beam Distilling Company. Come as a friend, leave as family.